Why don't we start? We'll start the meeting at 6 o'clock, Kathy. We'll call it to order and we'll start with attendance. I am here. I know Ken is not going to be here. Jamie?
Here.
All right. Lauren?
Here.
Oh, I don't see. Up there's Dave. How are you, Dave?
Good. Here.
And you see that. All right. We know Dan is probably coming. I know Nancy's not coming. Jason?
Present.
All right. And Leisha?
I'm here.
All right. So I think I hit everyone, right? One, two, three. Yep. So we have four now, so we do have a quorum, so we can continue on. Like I said, we'll bring in Dan. After I read the remote meeting procedures. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application at www.zoom.us and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. When conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the board members or commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found on participants from Zoom or make a request with the Q&A function. If you're joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request to the chair and the email materials to board staff or sharing on the screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. There's a markup function in Zoom which allows you to call out specific areas of presentation materials. Within any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting to allow for timely logins and remote attendance. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion in seconds so that it will be clear to the audience and minute takers who make motions. All votes will be by roll call. When all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meeting, signaling the end of the meeting and termination of the ECAT recording. All participants will be disconnected from the webinar at that time. Applicants will join the webinar as an attendee and promoted to panelist at their agenda item. Applicants will then be able to share their screens and present their materials. As much as possible, presentation materials should be provided beforehand, so materials can be included in the public record. Individual board chairs and staff may wish to keep screen sharing to their computer. Applicants are encouraged to speak with staff prior to the meeting on how material will be presented. There we go.
Excuse me, there is a Colleen Mahoney waiting.
There is,
Not PM.
Colleen Mahoney.
yeah, are we expecting any of the panelists or no? All right. So they can't be promoted to panelists, Kathy, I believe, but they can be, they can attend the Zoom meeting. They just can't have their video feed and things.
Okay, do you want to allow her to talk?
I don't think they can be promoted to panelist, right? Isn't that?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just leave as is.
Yeah, I think
Alrighty,
yeah.
okay,
They should be an attendee right now.
they are,
Yeah, okay. So that's,
yes,
and then, like I said, that's the raise hand function. Everything is there for folks.
all right.
Alrighty. So we'll start with the agenda items. Our first one is the approval of the meeting minutes from October 8th, 2024. I had sent those out. Did anybody have any comments, questions, concerns about the minutes from October 8th meeting? Right. Seeing none, I will take a motion to accept those meeting minutes.
No move. Stebbins.
Evans. Do I have a second?
Second. Cruz.
Jason. All right, we'll have a roll call vote. I am a yes. Jamie,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
And I don't see Dan yet. Okay. And Jason.
Yes.
Okay. So those minutes, they pass unanimously. All right, why don't we go on to the old business? We'll start. Dave, if you just want to briefly run down any changes with the water treatment plant facility project.
I can be very brief. I have no update. We're still working on punch list and getting a permanent CO.
Okay, and the certificate of occupancy, the final one has been issued, correct?
Correct. We're on a temporary still.
Okay, yeah. All right. Anyone have any questions? Like I said, I think we're just have a punch list. Does anyone have any questions for Dave regarding the project? All right. Seeing none, we will move over to the Easton Early Elementary School project update. I didn't know if there's any changes there.
I got the same update as Dave. We're down to one warranty item and 4 open corrective action items. So, and potentially could be 3 at the end of this week. So that's where we're at over there.
All righty. And same thing, Walter. We're still on a temporary on that, right?
Yeah, I believe that's still a temporary. I don't think there's anything holding up a final, but I don't think anyone has gone for the final yet.
Okay. And was there any info on the lead submission? That was the only other thing I think we usually throw out.
They requested the submission, the person submitting requested some qualifications because during the time when SMMA was our MSBA assigned commissioning agent, they actually ended up subbing out a piece of it. So they asked for some credentials from the person that subbed in for them. So those are being finalized. Chris, I don't think we've gotten those yet from the.
Yeah, I think they're waiting on a resume for them.
Yep. So a resume as part of the submission, but the submission, I believe, is being reviewed. It's just supplementary information for their review right now.
All right. And we'll just kind of keep hitting that till I think we, finally get the certification. Anyone have any other questions regarding the early elementary school project?
Just who applies for the certificate of occupancy, the final one? You said, Walter, that could be applied for, just hasn't yet.
That would be it's kind of a coordination item between the school and Brate. So it's not really a requirement for Brate they just need to complete all the items. It's kind of a school item. So Brate hasn't been back on site for that. So we can reach out to Brate and see what their plan is. I don't think it's a Brate responsibility at this point in time to get it because I think they've completed everything, but I think it might just be a coordination between who thinks who is getting it right now.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. Good question, Jamie. And yeah, because I think once those are issued on both those projects, that's I think a good time to take them off the list as we go. So
once the final COO is all set.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Any other questions on that early elementary school? All right. Seeing none, I just wanted, and Kathy, I don't know if you're there. Is Dan here yet or not? I don't see him.
He's coming in.
Okay. All right. So we'll give him a minute. Yes, there he is. All right. How are you, Dan? All right,
everyone.
Yep, I knew you were going to be late. I told everyone, so we were kind of holding out. So perfect timing. We're going to move on to the Easton Public Safety and Public Works project update. So I don't know, Walter, if you or Greg want to take it from here.
I think Greg's gonna screen share. He's got most of the slides, but we'll take care of ours.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So we'll go through just a relatively brief update. A lot going on here internally, but really the same basic topics that we've talked about a number of times. Some good news on permitting. We'll get into a little bit of design update, pre-qual, just an update on where we are with that. Kind of run through the schedule and next steps, and then open it up to any questions and comments. So we'll try to keep our discussion brief. Great news on permitting. We are through permitting on both sites with favorable orders of conditions. Obviously, Depot Street has a number of conditions that come from conservation and planning. Over at 321 Main Street, it's only a planning approval, so some similar conditions, but a little bit less intensive because we aren't in any of the wetland buffers or wetland areas in that site. So just a little bit simpler in terms of approvals. So great news there. Minor comments. Everything is able to be handled administratively, and we're set to go in terms of permitting. For the public safety, we've presented it the select board just last week, and got some comments back from them regarding the complex naming and the signage at the complex entry. So this is a little bit updated version since we met with them, showing the public safety complex as the name, a digital sign for messaging at the front of the complex, as well as police, fire, and public works. So at select board, one of the comments was that the police, fire, and public works was a little bit small. So we've extended the base up slightly, made that lettering a little bit bigger, and dropped it to 2 lines so that we can fit just some bigger letters in there, getting that to be a little bit more prominent. We've moved the sign just internally here as we look through things to the the east side of the main entry to the building. Before it was just a little bit further down the site, so we've pulled it back so that it's clear. Basically where the sign is the main entry, so that people aren't driving past the entry, seeing the sign, and then maybe turning on to the apparatus bay deck or something like that, so that it's clear. As a note, the digital signs are not allowed currently anywhere by right in town. So the digital sign does require a variance per the zoning board. So we'll have to go to zoning board of appeals for the variance for that sign. That being said, it's a fairly minor detail we're able to work through kind of a little bit independently of going out to bid. It'll be incorporated into the bid set pending approval to make sure we go through zoning, get that proper approval, and move on. The logo for the sign matches all of the branding and wayfinding signage in town, with the town seal on the actual buildings themselves, along with public safety and public works, respectively. I'll just walk through these. These are relatively similar to what you've seen previously for slides as we go kind of down the main facade along Depot Street. And looking back at the main entrance, we are still making some final tweaks on flag locations, monument locations, things like that are coming over from the existing facilities. Just final locating those, coordinating with the lighting and all the other things that go in to make a well-rounded site design, making sure they're all coordinated and we don't have any kind of conflicts in the documents. So that's really what the team is working on, in depth, getting into how tall is the standoff for the light stand that lights up the sign and things like that, making sure we have that all coordinated. So in addition, we're updating our stones at the front. Those are there for both kind of seating and for vehicle protection. So the rendering tool we have kind of shows them as kind of like natural stones. They will be a bit more kind of formal, where there'll be cut granite block, a little bit more regular in shape and form. We've showed those previously in site site focus group meetings and things like that, the rendering just doesn't quite reflect that because just the rendering tools we have available. But we're working through those final details, making sure we get that stuff coordinated and ready to go for the bid set. Again, jumping back to Public Works, the primary focus here is getting all of the underground utilities coordinated and spaced apart, making sure the entry sequences are all right with the access control systems, making sure the alternates are all clear in the contract documents. Those are really the focuses here, along with finishing out all that last, bit of coordination with the trades. So again, no big surprises here in terms of the layout. Again, as a reminder, this section here on the south side of the Public Works building will be alternates 1 and 2. So alternates 1 and 2 are the canopy for outdoor storage. We chose to split those in half, if you all recall, doing one half as alternate 1, the second half as alternate 2, so that you have just a little bit better chance of getting at least part of that and moving on to the second one should the funds be available within the project budget. Again, overview of the overall site. As a reminder, again, on that alternate strategy, this area is set up where alternate number 3 has non-photovoltaic canopies in it. In the base bid, so what we start with is basically no canopies, regular site lighting, but provisions to eventually go in and put PV canopies over those parking areas. So this is the probably most complicated site aspect of the building in terms of coordination with mechanicals. If the building gets built without that alternate and you go back to put in those canopies, there will just inevitably be some rework of things. We just can't set up 100% to get there. That being said, it's possible to do it. People put up solar canopies in existing parking lots all the time, but we're coordinating to make sure that should we not get to that third alternate, your ability to go do that in the future is still there. So I know that's a little bit complicated. Trust me, it's far more complicated than I make it sound. The consultants are working hard to make sure we have everything clear of that area so that we're good and are all set. Moving on, just again, circling back to the sign and just showing a little bit more of the sign. These are physical samples with pictures so that you can see the brick and the sign. The renderings don't always give it the greatest view of contrast, but the contrast in person is there. I know virtually and even the pictures don't really do great rendering these things out, but in person they do look very good. Just another plug for a special town meeting for Jamie since he's on the 18th. So you can see, this is a great place to be able to put messages for the town. The alternative is really what we have now, which are mobile message boards that get kind of put around town. And, given that the town's investing about $150 million in a project like this, a rollout message board in front of the building perhaps isn't the greatest. So if there is the opportunity to do a permanent, more functional, easy to use sign, this is where it is. Jumping to fire substation, again, same square footage, no major changes here. Some minor tweaks in signage and things like that, but really nothing of note in terms of site layout to talk about. Again, this does have a 100-foot tower at it that the town is procuring separately and will be installed as part of the project, but separately from the construction bid. Again, fire substation from Main Street. And with that, I'll jump over to Walter and just to talk about the pre-qualification committee and just a brief update on where we're at.
But we just
Yeah,
stop before Walter, just before you jump in. I just didn't. I had a couple questions, Greg, on that design, and then if someone else, and then we'll kind of move
Absolutely.
on. For the 524 depot, I didn't see. Is there any signage on the DPW building itself? You know, like you have like public safety complex. I didn't know. Like I didn't see anywhere where it said
Yeah,
DPW. Is that something that we're
sure.
looking into or Dave wanted?
So, yeah, Andy, and we've showed that rendering before, so I apologize we didn't include it this time. But as you come over the bridges and down the road, up above this roof line here is what you're seeing, and on there's a wall section there up high, and that section has Department of Public Works on it up above. So in our next presentation, I'll certainly put that rendering back in, Andy, but it is pretty prominent, particularly as you come over.
Greg,
Great question.
Do you have the aerial view of the complex? Because I think that would explain the roof line.
Yeah, I think so.
Thought I saw that.
Yeah, sorry. So Andy, good
Like,
call.
yeah, it's like
so
right
right there, Andy. So as you're coming
above
over
the
the
entry.
bridges,
Yeah.
you know, it's straight on as you're coming over the bridges. So that's clear. As another note, Andy, while we're on the topic of signage, throughout the site, we're putting in wayfinding signage that matches the wayfinding signage throughout town to direct people back to the DPW, you know, back to the exit when they're coming back from DPW, things like that. Isn't a lot, but 3 or 4 places where we're going to put wayfinding signage in the town standard throughout the site. So folks that are coming maybe to go back and get salt to DPW or to talk to the water department kind of know how to get there, know how to get back. And it's clear and defined so that people aren't just kind of lost. There aren't a whole lot of places to go, but making it easy to navigate is important.
Good, excellent. One other thing, that the digital sign, Greg, it's just hard to determine scale. Is that similar? Because again, I just always think of the Mansfield Public Safety Complex. Is that a similar size, would you say?
I'd say it's a similar size to the Mansfield one, Andy. It's probably a similar size to the one that's at Oliver Ames. So
Okay.
it's not very large. It's about I forget the actual dimensions. It's about 3 by 7 in terms of size. The signage here is a single color non-animated sign. So it's only orange letters in a fixed position. If you've been by Mansfield, Mansfield has a little bit fancier of the sign where it does multicolor and things like that. But it can be hard to design what goes on that sign and make it legible. The single color signs, particularly where signs aren't allowed by right, are often easier to get past zoning bylaws and zoning approval because they're not flashing, they're not moving, they're not doing things. They dim at night. You know, they're bright during the day, and then at night they dim down, so they're not like bright for the neighbors, things like that. And they're pretty easy to operate. So ease of operations and simplicity, I think, is good in this case. And this was our recommendation.
Oh, good, excellent, thank you. The only other thing, because I apologize, I'm busy at work, so I couldn't go. I didn't know if anything changed during that MEP focus group last week. I didn't know if anything came out of that the MBC should know about.
In terms of changes, Andy, I don't think there were really any. You know, it's a somewhat complex system because it is VRF and there are a lot of requirements in the code that make the controls a little bit complex. That being said, in terms of operations, right, it's pretty simple. Basically each room is on its own controller that ties through to the unit in the room. Pretty straightforward in most cases. We did talk about a number of items, obviously, in a meeting that kind of overview. And then just, you know, we do have some pretty aggressive energy targets that we're still trying for. We're not quite there yet. The 100% model run will give us a better indication of what we're actually going to get. That said, the incentives are all still there, even if we don't hit those very aggressive targets. They are slightly less, but in terms of order of magnitude, there really isn't a huge difference in terms of the incentive, because the majority of the incentive, if you remember, is based on the geothermal,
Yeah, the geothermal, yeah.
credit, kind of that adder that Mass Save has, and we're eligible for that in any scenario. Well, we are. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
On the energy efficiency stuff, I had a quick question. I was reading through the EEAC's 3-year plan for Mass Save for the next 3-year period that's going to start in January. And one of the items I came across that I don't deal with on a day-to-day basis because I'm all in residential is something called an air curtain that I guess is used to be able to blast a sheet of air down in front of an open garage bay door to help keep the conditioned air in. I wasn't sure if you've had any experience with that and if that's part of this proposed plan.
So it's not part of the proposed plan right now, Jason. There's some pluses and minuses. Usually to do them, depending on how you set them up, they're most convenient in a rolling door scenario or a vertical lift door. So the doors would have to lift completely vertical in order to get the air curtain close enough to the the opening to create the curtain. And in our case, in most of our cases, we have sectional overhead doors that come up and go over. Given the size that they are, it's really hard to get the air curtain under them while getting it high enough to lift. That said, we do have terminal units kind of at the doors to provide makeup air or makeup heat in the cases where the doors are open and things like that. It's a good question. It is used sometimes, but in our case, it's not the most efficient for what we're really doing.
Yeah, I figured that something like that may wind up being the answer. It was something where I hadn't heard of it, and seems like there's certain applications where it work and others.
Yeah,
work.
and there's certainly great applications for it. Like I said, coiling doors on like more industrial facilities, they're great. Where doors are hung open for a long time, they blast a curtain of air down. You've probably been blasted by one in a vestibule of like a supermarket or something like that in front of sliding doors. Same thing. It's just they're very large. Given the size of our openings, they're just kind of big.
Okay.
Good question. Anyone else have any, as far as the design goes, have any other questions, comments, concerns before we move on to the pre-qualification process?
And Andy, I would just note that, we're wrapping up what we're calling the 100% set Friday, and that'll be distributed to the committee through PMA on probably Monday at this point for the committee's review, and comment back. We won't actually hit the street until probably the first week of December. So if there are kind of straggler comments or questions, we're certainly happy to address them or take them under advisement and make revisions as necessary.
Great. Good to know. Good to know. All right. You want to pick up, Walter, where we left off there?
Yeah, it's really, I think we went over this last time when the group voted on the town members to join the pre-qual committee. But we are planning to receive the packages tomorrow. We had an addendum go out on Thursday last week. Plenty of time for the bidders to take that into account in their packages. But I think we had over 150 subcontractors and general contractors pick up the RFQ. So we are expecting a good response tomorrow. PMA will prep everything, get it out to the groups. We'll have a live link for everyone to work through their packages, give everyone a link to the packages themselves. And then PMA will get going on the reference checks and get that inputted in as well. So we'll be able to get an update to the committee in advance of that December meeting on probably, well in advance of that, because that'll need to go into the final bid package as well. So pre-qual going well. Right on track for master schedule. As Greg mentioned, our permitting has wrapped up. We're in the middle of pre-qual for trade contractors and general contractors, and then we are anticipating being able to go to bid late November. Greg, we're still on target for that, right?
Yeah, I think the documents actually come available, Walter, like the 2nd or something like that, because Thanksgiving is was late in the month. So I think looking at it today, the earliest it would probably hit the street, I think, is like the 5th. It would be the Wednesday after the publishing of the Central Register.
Yep.
But that first week of December is when documents would be available.
Yep, and we're planning to go give everyone time right through the new year to allow for the holidays. But we're also anticipating that we'll have trade questions that may extend that time frame as well. So we're looking sometime in January probably to wrap up bidding, any addenda that need to go out, and answer all the bidder questions as well. So that's really everything on schedule. We're moving right through. Just a highlight of kind of what's going on. Wrapped up the site permitting, document development, value management. That's wrapped up. We are in that pre-qual, filed sub-bid, and general bid phase very quickly here. So we are right on track with what we are anticipating for that schedule, and the design's progressing ahead with all the great input and the great work from KBA and Weston and Sampson. That's it. Just the key dates, really, we're working through. We'll keep everyone aware as items are coming up. We'll give some more finalized hard dates at the December meeting as we get everything wrapped up for the trades. They are, like I said, they are going to be kind of flexible dates because we're going to need to answer bidder questions as they come in. Some are trickier than others, and some are not. So we'll move through that process and keep everyone on the Municipal Building Committee aware of what's going on. Next meeting, I believe, is December 17th. So before the holidays, or in between the holidays, and then January 14th. Hopefully we may need to add a meeting in January or adjust that meeting in January based on how the bidding process goes. But again, we will be in touch with Andy and we'll make sure that we give everyone plenty of time in advance if we need an additional meeting. Greg, anything to add on key dates or schedule?
No, I think you hit on them, Walter, that that January date, we'll see how we are with bidding. We want to make sure that we not only give them enough time and get the bids in a responsible time for the town to make a decision, but we also want to keep that initial high interest level that we had up. So I think, Walter, last we talked, it was over 150 plan holders. So that's a great number. So we want to make sure that the bidding schedule, particularly over the holidays, still allows for those bidders to stay interested and be able to bid, while still, making sure that they, complete the bid, get it in. We have a project to get done here. So a little bit of flexibility there on the town's behalf will go a long way in making sure that we are able to kind of fine tune that in and make sure that we keep that interest high.
Absolutely. So I believe that's everything the PMA team had. And I know we went over any design questions, but happy to take any other questions from the committee as well.
Yeah, can you go back one slide just for a second, Walter? I just wanted to look. So as far as reviewing bids and awarding the bids, what's that process in those dates?
January 4th, we're targeting that January 14th date.
So that will be when we review bids,
well,
but is that actually when we would award them or no? Or discuss them?
It's kind of going to be a process. We're going to have KBA and PMA are going to have to see where we're at as we move through December, as we move through January, and when those are coming in. But so we're going to have to stay in close contact with you as we move through, depending on how much interest and how many questions are generated from those bidders. That could push out in advance of the it could push out 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're just going to have to stay right on a week-to-week basis and in contact with you and Dave and Connor as we need to adjust that potential date. But right now, that's what we're targeting is the 14th.
And as far as actually awarding the bid, is that something we make a recommendation or do we award it as an MBC? I don't know, procedurally speaking, what that would be.
Believe you'll make a recommendation to the select board. And
Select
the
board.
select board will
Okay.
make we'll take the vote to award. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's how it was a while ago. I believe that's how we did it for the school, but you had one more recent. Is that how you did it for DBW?
Yeah, it'll be the select board will make that award.
Yep. So recommendation from MBC and then select board, vote to approve or vote to award.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Anyone else have any questions as far as the bidding goes and the next steps? You heard the dates. Okay, seeing none, and we'll just stay in touch, Walter. I mean, we have the bi-weekly meetings anyway, so
Yeah, I think we may be in touch more than that. So you might get sick of us.
that's all right. That's the job.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. That was very informative. Good work, everyone. Does anyone else have any new business from the MBC? All right. Seeing none, that was a pretty efficient meeting. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Stebbins.
Stebbins. All right. Do I have a second?
Second, Bruce.
Bruce. All right. We'll do a roll call vote. I am a yes. Jamie?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
All right. Dan?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time and pick it up again in December. And we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks.
Take it easy.
Okay.
Have a good
Thanks, everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Yep,
Yep.
you too.